Welcome everyone to another Brand Doctor podcast episode. We have yet another amazing guest on the show. This guy has helped me tremendously over the past couple of years, really scale my business and create those processes and systems inside of my business to really help me replace myself, really, and to keep me focused on what it is that I love to do, which is obviously video and podcasting and connecting with my clients and strategy calls and all of that. And without him, I swear I would not be where I'm at today with the size of my business, the amount of staff that I have currently, the amount of success that it's achieving. So without further ado, I want to introduce my man, Spencer McMurtry, to the show because he is the man when it comes to processes and systems. What's going on, Spence?
Hey, Henry. Yeah, it's so good to catch up with you. It's awesome to see how things have progressed. From when we first met, I think it was about 3 years ago at the Traffic and Conversion Summit, actually.
Dude, we were there. You sat right next to me. I walked out of that conference saying there's no coincidence that I met this guy today. No coincidence whatsoever. And we connected when we got home, and you helped me tremendously put together the processes and systems inside my business that I'm still using to this day and have been the money I spent on you has come back 50-fold. And it was such a great investment. And I just have to thank you again, dude, for doing what you do and being so damn good at it.
It's good when I have a good student. So I'm really glad to hear that you implemented what we worked on, and it has helped.
For sure.
So definitely take action.
Yeah, for those folks that do not know who Spencer McMurtry is, I want you to just give a quick, introduction, quick bio, how you got started, where you're at now, and how you're helping clients today.
Yeah, definitely. I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. I've started and grew a couple of actually design and manufacturing businesses related to vehicle wraps. So I had started my first company actually when I was 14, and it evolved and I ended up getting into the vehicle wrap business. And I had a physical company that did that. I ran it for 5 years, sold it, and then I started a virtual one that did that and built it. And then when I had that company, I ended up selling to a large corporation. And when I sold it, I realized that I had this really innate ability to build systems. Because this corporation sold to this massive corporation, and the amount of processes and systems that I had built it was very helpful for them. And that's when I realized I really had this art to build systems. And since then, that's what I started doing. I started this company called the Systems Method, and I help companies improve their processes and systems, really from a leadership aspect. So that way I can empower the owners to be better leaders, and so they can empower their management team or their executives to also be better leaders. So it involves a lot of exactly what I taught Henry. It involves basically figuring out you already produce your product or service, right? You're already great at producing your product or service. So I basically help you streamline that process and just make it more efficient. And so you can not only increase profits because you're more efficient, but also you have more freedom because everything is documented, and then we can get the right people in place. And this kind of grew from there. I'm helping people with I do one-on-one coaching, as well as I have a mastermind group, and I do what I call leadership systems. So I actually go inside of it. This is typically for larger organizations, typically over 50 employees, but I go inside and actually help the owners clearly define a leadership structure, clearly map out who they're the format of their executives, help them with job roles, help them measure that. I could go on and on, but lots of cool stuff.
Well, one of the things that I want to add to that list of benefit from creating those systems is efficiency. I've been able to be much more efficient with my business and my output recently, that it's been able to turn over a way higher quality result than what I was doing prior to meeting you. So processes and systems inside your business are so critical these days. But today I want to focus in on a couple different things. I want to focus in on creating great company culture, leadership, and then we'll get back into those systems right before we round out the show. But so when you're working with companies of, you said 15 employees or more?
Yeah, 15 plus. Usually that's the sweet spot where the owner is overwhelmed with what's going on.
Right. So what do you see a big gap or a big leak when it comes to establishing that great company culture? Is it the leadership from the top isn't communicating effectively enough down, there's causing that bottleneck? What's going on? Where's the where are things getting jammed up?
That's such a great question. It's one word, communication. It all has to do with communication. And a lot of times the owners or the president of the company doesn't know how to properly communicate with them. And the truth is, every single employee has a different way of communicating. So some like verbal communication with the one-on-one attention, some want it documented. So they just don't understand what's going on. And so a lot of times what we'll do is we'll help them basically come up with a report card so they can actually rate each employee on how they're doing with their values or their company culture for that matter. So literally we make them a report card and we do monthly evaluations with their team so they can rate them on, we call it a performance improvement plan. And so that way everybody knows exactly where they're at rather than just being this confusion of like, I don't know where I'm at or I don't know what I should be doing. They can clearly see what's documented on that paper so they know what they can work to improve on.
I love it. I love it. So here's a couple of questions. So when I was getting my master's in business management, I had a couple great mentors, a couple great professors, and they gave me a slew of questions to really pay attention to when it came to creating that company culture and getting people to work for you with the same amount of passion that you have for your own business. And people say that that's impossible, but I tend to disagree with that. And so I want to list off a couple of questions that I want to sort of give to our audience today to get them thinking a little bit more critically about your team and how you need to start communicating with that team, how you need to start treating that team if you really want to take your brand and business to the next level. So a couple of questions that I typically ask, my clients is, do your employees know how they're doing? Are you connecting with them on multiple touch points throughout the week, the quarter, the year, and giving them current relevant feedback? One thing that I've noticed millennials love is that constant feedback or that constant recognition of, hey, you're doing a good job, or hey, you might want to try it this way, or when they feel those touch points, they feel significant. They feel like their job and what they're doing means something to the overall business. And if you can tap into that, you're going to pull out a lot of fire. And so that's one thing that I would ask. And then the second thing I would ask is, do you take enough time to ask your employees what motivates them? Because not everybody wants a bonus in money, right? So I did something interesting last year that just set the tone for the way that I structure my culture. So I was in New York City and I was at the Iconic event. It was hosted by CNBC. And there was a guy that he's the CEO of the company Boxed, Boxed. It's a big company and he's got a very powerful company culture. And instead of giving his employees bonuses, he'll pay for like a year's tuition.
Wow. He
paid for one of his employees' weddings. He paid for one of his employees to go on a little mini vacation. So that gave me an idea. So my project manager, she's been with me for 5 years. She lives out in the Philippines. And I asked her one day, I said, what would you love to do with your kids? She's got 2 kids. I said, what would you love to do with your kids? you know, if you could wave a magic wand, she said, well, my son really wants to go to Universal Studios in Singapore. Like, that's his dream. So I said, Pam, do me a favor. Go and look at the rates, the airline rates, and give me that. So when she gave me back the prices, I was like, oh my God, it's really nothing. Plus airfare and hotel, like it's really, really inexpensive. I said, listen, this is what you're going to do. I said, you're taking those kids to Universal Studios. And I just want to thank you for all of the hard work that you've done for me over the past 2 years. She's been working with me about 2 years, 3 years at that point. And I said, I just want you to enjoy it. And the tears, right? And I said, wow, that hit me in a way that I never thought it was going to hit me until I actually did it. And so, man, when you start to do things like that, just imagine what the company culture may be. So I'd love to get your perspective on building that culture and creating that inside.
I love that example. Actually, I've actually did similar for employees as well. And yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. Everybody does have different values. Everyone has different love languages. Their needs get met in different ways. So it's important that you meet them. And I mean, really, what I think the owner needs to really understand. It depends on the size of the company, okay? But if the owner needs to be connecting directly with all the employees, if it's a small enough company. If the company's larger, then their seniority needs to be connecting with them and learning what their goals are, learning what their values are. Typically, we recommend doing at least a monthly evaluation where they're talking with them, learning what those are. And once they understand those needs, do what they can to meet them. We do like a monthly company picnic. I have a client, we do like an incentive program where like all the team members get rated on certain things. And then whoever did the best that month gets they get promoted, but they get acknowledged in front of the team, and they get a little bit of money, and then they have like this big barbecue. So it's meeting all of those needs. So it's really just, understanding your teams and then just doing what you can to meet those needs. I mean, really a big one is significance. People just want to feel important. So you want to recognize them. It all depends, but that's usually a big one. People just want to feel cared for too. So if you're taking that time to really understand their values and their needs, they're going to feel like you care about them, and they're going to want to grow within the company. And then if they have that one-on-one time with an executive and they feel like their voices are being heard, then they'll actually want to contribute versus when they don't get to talk to anyone, they just complain. And that's how people end up quitting, or leaving the company, because they have all these ideas and they want to grow, but yet nobody sees that and is promoting them to grow.
Yeah. And another thing I want to, that's great insight and great points. The other thing that I want to point out is making sure that you're putting the people in the right positions. Like the worst thing you could do for your brand or your business is to have a team member working in the wrong position. I'll give you a quick example. I had a designer on the team who wasn't really efficient in website design. And we had we've thrown him a couple website design projects, and they just weren't coming back with the quality that I was looking for, right? And so I pulled him aside one day and I said, Drew, do you feel comfortable designing websites? And he goes, no. And I said, well, good thing I asked, right? I said, what do you feel really strong in when it comes to designing for clients? And he said, well, social media identity. Like, give me some social media identity work and I will throw it out. I will knock it out of the park for you. And so I looked at one of my other designers who was really strong in website design, and she was getting a lot of the social media identity work, right? Because we were just throwing the projects out, sort of chronologically. So Drew gets a project, Malika gets a project. Drew gets a project, Malika. And then I realized that that's not really going to work, right? Because you really got to pay attention to the type of project. So when we did the swap-a-roo, so now Malika got all the website projects and Drew got all the social media identity projects, the output was mind-blowing. And the efficiency and everything just worked that much faster, and they were happy. I was happy, and the great thing was I was nimble enough, and I was able to see that so quickly. Boom, done. And so it makes you make such great points when being able to pinpoint that stuff and seeing that as a leader. And that's kind of what I wanted to get into next. In your opinion, what makes a great leader?
Yeah, I mean, it all comes. I think they, the leader leads by inspiration and not by force, right?
Mm.
So it's being able to understand their needs and meet their needs, so that way they want to follow rather than they're forced to follow. You have the manager who's like, you better do this, or you're not going to get paid, or whatever, you're going to get fired. Or you have the leader who's like, look, we're going to do this, and we're going to do so well, and everybody's going to go to Florida, and we're going to go on we're going to have this big trade show, and we're all going to go get pizza. And then they're pulled versus pushed. So I think that all comes down to understanding the why. It always comes down to the why, which you talked about. Having a good enough motivation to move them forward. And the example you gave with people in the right seats, I mean, that's so true. Some people might hate what they're doing, but you won't know unless you're having that regular conversation with them. I actually did an interview earlier today, and we talked a lot about what we called having 15-minute meetings with every employee at least once a month. Like at least once a month. And I mean, if you don't have any kind of structure in place in your company, if you don't have any kind of report card system, at least bare minimum, that's what I would recommend to do, is at least just schedule 15 minutes with each employee. So that way you can learn. I mean, it's not that complicated. I think that would be a good starting place. And then you can start to learn what their values are and learn how to inspire them and be that good leader.
Yeah. It's so important to take that time and build that relationship and rapport. I mean, one of the biggest things that can make or break a business is poor communication and lack of effort when it comes to really investing in your people. One of the things that I realized was when I brought on a ClickFunnels team about 2 years ago, and one of the project managers of that team said, listen, I'm going to tell you right now, it's going to take about 100 hours for my team to get to the level of design that you're able to do inside of ClickFunnels. So I'm telling you now in advance. But the more articulate you can be for us, the more communicative with us, we're going to be able to shrink that 100 hours down real quick. And we're going to be able to get to your level of standard very quickly if you're able to do that. Now, I had an X factor. I had a sword that not a lot of people have. I'm a designer by trade. So I was able to speak language to them that an average person wouldn't be able to speak. So when I was speaking that language, and I still do to this day with all my design team, my whole entire creative team, it's incredible because now they're like, oh man, you speak our language. Thank God. We don't have to go back and forth 50 times, right? But understanding that it's going to take some time to get these folks to the point where you want them, and to have that mindset is going to help dramatically. So for example, let me ask you a question. I'm sure you get this a lot. When owners or business owners come to you and they say, you know what? It's going to take me quicker just if I did the damn thing myself. Right?
Yep.
How do you respond to that? How do you flip their thinking to no, it's not, pal?
And I'm a firm believer in going back to the why. With all my clients, with all of my groups, everything I do, I always go back to the why. And it's like, what is your motivation? Why? Is it to support your family? Is it to leave a legacy? Is it to work so many hours a week? And you really just dig deep on that why. Because what happens is we've been programmed for so long thinking, oh, well, I can just do it better. I can do it better. And the only way you're going to actually change that default programming is if you can get that leverage, And so I that's why I always start with the why, and then I'll explain, yeah, sure, you can do it yourself, but here's the reality. I give the example of, if you're doing the $15 an hour tasks, then you're never going to grow. You need to hire somebody to do those lower end tasks, and you need to do only what you could do. I mean, you being the owner, the manager of the company, typically that's related to visionary work. It's typically related to staffing. It's related to making sure the people are on the right seats, making sure people are being motivated right. It's not doing that, making that quote, sending that estimate, replying to that complaint.
That's it. So, understanding that from that perspective, I'm sure the business owner gets a little wide-eyed and is like, oh, wow, I didn't think of it that way. What am I doing? Writing estimates?
It takes some time, usually. But like what I like to do is I usually what I do what called the processes map, where basically we zoom out on their business and I'm like, look at this, and actually we map out every single step in their business. So they can literally see from like imagine you're like 30,000 feet above the business and you can see every single step. And then you're like, now that they see every single step, then they can start to realize, look, we can have an employee for here, an employee for here, an employee for here, and then you never touch it. And then guess what you do? You work on this new venture, and then once they start to realize that, that's usually when their light bulb comes on and they start getting excited.
Bam, 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 bam. Oh man, there's so many different directions I want to go. I don't know which one to go in because I can talk about this for hours. So let me ask you this. If you were to talk to our audience today, what would you tell them to steer away from a mindset perspective? Because I know you're very into the mindset, and you're very into creating growth from within, creating happiness and fulfillment from within. What would you say is a tip or a trick or a tactic or something that will help them really get clear on that leadership mentality, that culture mentality, that's really going to get them focused? And you can't say focus on your why either. I'm not going to let you go back there. What is something that they could do immediately to just push forward?
Yeah, I think a tangible thing would be to write an ideal schedule for their day. That's what I like to do with my clients too. It's like, okay, what is an ideal schedule? Okay, you wake up, maybe you work out, maybe you eat breakfast with your family, and then you have a little time for yourself. Then maybe you go to the office for 4 hours, and then you can go golfing or something. And then you come back and you can work on this other venture, this other thing. And so once they can tangibly see that, then they have something to kind of go towards. So I would say it's definitely something really fun to do, is to write your ideal schedule. And that will help drive you into knowing what you should. Because like if your ideal schedule is you're working 20 hours a week, then you're like, oh, something, I'm working 80 hours, 100 hours a week now, something's got to change. And I think it's got to change, as we discussed. They can't be doing those $15 an hour tasks.
Yeah, I love it. I think planning your day is essential. I mean, if you don't plan, it's kind of like you're shooting into the dark. You know what I mean? I always want to see what's coming up around the bend before the bend comes. So I could prepare. I could be ready. Nothing puts me off kilter more than me sort of trying to hustle to get to the next appointment because I'm late or because I haven't prepared. You know what I mean? A lot of times when I go on podcast episodes or interviews on other podcasts, I always like to listen to one or two different podcasts that they already produce to kind of get a feel for the person. You know what I mean? I was just on a podcast on Monday, and the guy from the UK, and you could tell he was a real animated character, and he's gonna pull no punch when it comes to asking questions, and he'll dig deep if he wants to, and there's nothing really you can do about it. So knowing that up front about him, I was sort of prepared for anything. He wasn't gonna catch me sleeping. You know what I mean? And it was so helpful. It was just so helpful, and it made for a great interview. So it was awesome stuff. So here's the deal, Spence. I've been referring people to you for a long time now, and I said I gotta have him back on the show, because if you're not investing in processes and systems, your business is only going to get to X level, and then you're going to hit that glass ceiling, and you're going to get real frustrated real quick. So I want to get more folks from my audience over to you and to really have them look at what you do on a daily basis, because you're good at really documenting and providing great value online. How can one get a hold of you, get in touch with you, and start to follow your journey?
Yeah, I would just go to my website at thesystemsmethod.com. Actually, you can just check out there. You can sign up for a free strategy session. Also, I have this LinkedIn community where I'm doing daily interviews with other business leaders, learning about their journey, so you can check that out. And I think that would be the first step. From there, you can kind of see what I offer. There's like the most cost-effective way is to do like a mastermind group, which is very, very reasonable. And you actually get to work with other business owners. It's really cool. And I take everyone through the same process. It's really like we focus on, like I said, building an operations manual. So helping you document everything in your business, and then clearly defining which employee is going to be responsible for that. And then it becomes their responsibility. And then they basically output a specific metric that you track. So rather than you trying to track everything, you're just tracking specific metrics. It's really phenomenal, actually, when you start to see it happen.
You really are, dude, a master of your craft. I have to tell you, man, I've never met somebody so thorough and so organized and so like on their game. It's very hard to find somebody like you. And so for those folks that are listening and watching, if you are struggling with creating efficiency inside of your business, this is one man that you need to sit down and talk to, and he will help you tremendously. I vouch for him because he has helped me so much in my business. So just wanted to give you another huge shout out, Spence, for being you and being awesome.
I appreciate that, Henry. It's always good to catch up.
You got it, my friend. Well, listen, guys, hope you enjoyed this content. Hope you got some value out of it. If you haven't subscribed to this YouTube channel yet, I would encourage you to hit that little red button. If you haven't subscribed to the podcast yet on iTunes, I would ask you to do that as well. And if you are loving what we're dropping here, please write a quick little written review. That would be super, super helpful. And it is the juice that fires these podcasts every day. So have an amazing day, guys. And again, at the end of the day, I want you to apply this stuff. I don't want you to just listen to it and store it in the back of your head and never come back to it again. I really want you to apply this stuff because it's so important. When you build a strong community inside of your business, it's only going to create great success outside of the business. When your customers see how you interact with your own, they're going to say to themselves, wow, that's how they're going to interact with me. I like it. Let's go. So have an amazing day, guys, and I'll catch you on the next episode. Take care.